Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the event. We're going to start the event sharp at 11 a.m. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the event. We're going to start the event sharp at 11 a.m.
Hello, check 1 2 3. Check. Hello, check 1 2 3. Hi, check, check 1 2 3. Hey, test one.
Hi, Mansi. Good morning.
Hi, can
Mans?
you?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Th- Hi, guys. Good morning. Hi, Anish. Hi, Darshi.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing good.
Is the audio better than yesterday?
Mhm.
Not really.
It's still breaking a little.
Hmm. Change that now. I'm like not even.
So we're just waiting for Namrata and Ashwin to come in.
Yep. Ashwin is joining in a couple of minutes. There's some echo coming from some system. Can you guys, someone go on mute?
Yeah, this is because we have our systems here. Just give us a minute. As soon as they come in, we'll pin you guys on the screen, and then I'll put myself on mute.
Okay.
Is the echo coming now? Inish, there's a person called Jayanti Goswami. Is that from your company?
Hey, Aditi, sorry, I'm on call with Abhishek. Let me sort something. I don't think this person is from our company. I think it might be a person who's joined the webinar.
Yeah.
Just give me a couple.
Okay. But I know, but who is that? Morning, Ashwin.
of the Bombay Hemp Company. And since 2018, she has been a strong advocate for sustainability across fashion and lifestyle, including through her eye-opening talk at TED titled "Why We." I guess there's a little bit of background noise. Can someone please go on mute? Apologies for that. Hello. Okay, I think we should be good now.
Inesh, you're on mute. I don't think we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, but yeah, can just everyone go on mute, please? Uh, the eBlitz team, can you hear me? Apologies for that. There were some audio issues, so I think the audio was getting repeated. We will get back on track. So we were talking about Mansi, so how she has worked as the founding member of the Hemp Fabric Lab of the Bombay Help Company, and then she's also been, since 2018, she's been a very strong advocate for sustainability across fashion and lifestyle, including through her eye-opening talk at TED titled "Why We Shouldn't Talk About Sustainability." Her interest lies in decoding consumer behavior, ethical supply chains, and green marketing. And somehow, this balance of humbleness and conviction, she has been able to balance this humbleness and conviction in through which she goes about doing her thing through all the multiple initiatives. So, welcome, Mansi. The final member of the panel is Namrata. She is the Director of Strategy and Brands at Futurescape. Her work focuses on building ESG strategy and transformation through sustainability journey mapping, a dream job for a lot of us, I'm sure. Namrata is an alum of IIM Ahmedabad and the University of Cambridge, where she has honed her skills in sustainability and now also passes on her knowledge to the students at IIM Udaipur in her capacity as a visiting faculty for sustainability and CSR. She has co-authored Balance, which is a book on responsible business for the digital age. And for those of you on LinkedIn who follow Namrata, I'm sure you must be you keep learning from her weekly anecdotes and factoids on ESG in specific and sustainability in general that she keeps sharing. So to start off this panel, I want to start it off with a question to Mansi and Dharashri on their opinion on why consumers are becoming more sustainability centric. And Mansi, we would love to hear your perspective from a consumer behavior point of view, and Dharashri, yours from a corporate or even the research lens that you've seen it through.
Sure. So, first of all, thank you so much for organizing this, Inish. It's really a pleasure to be here. So, sustainability as a concept is not new. It's been around since the 60s, and we've had conscious consumers back then, and we're just seeing history repeat itself right now. Um, and consumers, there are different consumers in India, right? They're early adopters in not only India but all over the world. They're early adopters, and they're the laggards, and then they're the ones in between their journey. And so I think and there are many factors that have a role to play in making sustainability more mainstream now. I think a lot of grassroots activism, thanks to people, organizations like Passion Revolution or Extinction Rebellion or even Greta Thunberg as an individual has contributed in many ways. And that combined with corporations themselves taking the initiative to educate consumers about the issue of climate change has also helped. And consumers on the ground level are seeing the impact of climate change around them. So we're seeing, we're seeing floodings, we're seeing droughts, we're seeing plastic pollution on the rise. And so all of these combined together has really led to, I would say, more awareness around sustainability and a demand for more mindfully made products. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Mansi. Dharashri, your perspective from a corporate point of view.
Yeah. Again, thanks, Inesh, Ashwin, everyone from the team for making this happen. This is quite a large initiative, so congratulations and all the best for making this successful. Going back to answer this question, when the term sustainability was coined, it was more of a research topic, really. People were talking about planetary boundaries, but the negative consequences of not taking action were not really in your background, in your backyard the way it is now. So, from a corporate perspective, nowadays, sustainability has moved from being a nice to have, side initiative to really being a mainstay business imperative, where the teams are really being challenged with this, and what else can you do? You have corporations talking about going fully electric in their logistics. You have them looking for alternatives for plastic packaging. You have them setting up rooftop solar panels. They're really looking at each and every aspect of their supply chain and thinking through what else can we do to be more sustainable, right? And on the other hand, like Mansi mentioned, there's definitely a growing set of consumers who have very positive attitudes towards eco-friendly products and services. And we were just talking about the elusive green consumer, and I was mentioning that there's a survey that said 65% people say they want to buy from purpose-driven brands that advocate for sustainability. So there are definitely a lot of positive signs. Consumers today are much more aware about sustainability, ranging from zero waste practices in their homes, ethical sourcing, to climate change. They want to bring that into their lives. So it's critical for brands and businesses to really listen, evolve alongside consumers, adopt like an more audience informed strategy, and really involve various stakeholders and their interests. So you know, to make sure that the question of making that choice between sustainability versus everything else is reduced as much as possible. So they really, you can put intent to action. So that's on us, and we're really, working through the entire ecosystem to make that happen. So hopefully, in the future, you're going to see a lot more news coming up.
Yeah, and I'd also like to add something there, Nish. So I think the one key thing here is that sustainability has been a part of our lives for a very long time. It's not a separate concept. It's actually within all of us. We all understand innately what it means. We've just kind of forgotten in the midst of all this noise. We have been in India, especially, we've been practicing sustainability for a very long time. Like I mean, everything you're seeing today, all these trends that you're seeing of reuse, upcycling, going buying from artisans, like this is all part of the Indian culture. We've been doing it, practicing, living it, breathing it for a very long time. So we just need to relearn those habits and sort of imbibe those values again within us. And for me, like, I didn't even speak about sustainability until I went to the Netherlands. I think it was when I went to the Netherlands, I saw it happening all around me and people talking about it, which is why I started reflecting on it. And I think it was also the messaging, the way it was conveyed to me, that really impacted my the mindset shift that I had after I came back to India.
No, that's a really interesting perspective. Like we Indians inherently have a lot of sustainable practices that are being followed in rural areas, and sometimes when you're already working with minimal resources, you've already uh, driven so much efficiencies in the way you consume. Sometimes it's difficult to focus on a subject which deals with excessive consumptions and excessive consumption patterns, and there's a segment of the population which isn't used to those practices, so they don't necessarily get exposed to it. uh, we'll like to move on. I would love to introduce Ashwin Kak, uh, who's the director of sustainability in India, sustainability and agriculture, and would like to introduce him to continue this discussion with the three panelists. So the team, if you can make the switch mm, and bring Ashwin online.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Inej.
Thank you so much.
I hope
Over to you,
I
Ashwin.
hope everyone can hear me.
Yes, you're clear.
So the last 20, 30 minutes have just been like our last 1 year that we faced in sustainability, where there were so many challenges when the pandemic struck and the team on the field, the agriculture team was like, sir, tension mat lo, hum hai na. So that is the kind of thing I now myself experienced in the last 30 minutes. Thank you so much, Inesh, for taking charge while I was trying to get the issues sorted out. Quickly, here and for all of you. I think there are a few important points discussed there between both you, Mansi and Dharashri. I think here it also then makes sense when I probably look at the investment world, which is now focusing a lot more on the larger value chain impact. And Dharashri, again, probably a follow up question for you in terms of your own experiences. Do consumers expect the larger MNCs to do more than just sustainability in their own operations, but looking at the entire value chain impact? And if yes, then what has really stood out for you in that sense?
Yeah, I think what has stood out for me really is the amount of curiosity as well as awareness. It's a big balance that exists now in the mind of every consumer, every investor, every stakeholder. Everyone wants to know what are the companies doing, whether it be small or big, right? So there's a lot of interest around it, and businesses are definitely doing their part to communicate. Um, in today's world of information overload, isolation will lead to obsolescence, right? So you can't say that, no, I'm just going to do my own thing, and not really communicate. So communicating about the good work that folks are doing, not only keeps consumers engaged, but also employees, communities where they operate. It's important to think about your stakeholders as a continuum. And there are so many successful business initiatives that we can take a cue from, right? Just before we were talking about carbon neutral commitments that came out last year from so many different companies. There are transparency indices that the fashion world is working on, worker community development programs, and I think AB and Bev, we can take a cue from you as well on regenerative agriculture. So there are so many different type of things that are happening, very exciting opportunities for collaboration, for bringing the ecosystem together, whether it be with policymakers, whether it be with young entrepreneurs, with artisans, weavers. There's a lot that can be done. And as corporates, I think we have started to also recognize our responsibility to our broader supply chain. And it really excites me how much more impact we can really make here. Um, but the one thing that I would like to point out is that a lot of these more structural systemic solves can only come by looking at your entire value chain as a whole, right? And some of those, and that's where you have to work across many different stakeholders, bring together some new partners that you've never really thought about before. I think a few a few weeks back we were talking about how there are unusual partnerships nowadays in the world, right? You have a footwear company working with a tire company trying to make products. You have different kinds of things happening. So it's very exciting. um, and as corporates and as larger corporations, it is our responsibility to even put out those broad, audacious goals that may not have an immediate solve, but that you can push and nudge that ecosystem to make it happen. Right. Going back to, let's say, Flipkart's example, we put out an EV100 initiative commitment saying that we're going to go 100% electric. There are so many parts of the logistics supply chain that do not have electric vehicles yet, but we still were like, no, we need to make this happen. We'll work through the ecosystem to make it happen, but unless as bigger corporates we put out that larger commitment, it'll be it really sends that signal out to the rest of the ecosystem to start working.
That's true. That's true. In fact, this also sort of reminds us the example that I was just giving of the agriculture procurement in our team, which happened last year. So it started off in March, and the moment we had a lockdown, everyone was sort of stuck in their own districts.
Right.
We all did something which we felt was the right and the appropriate thing to do at that time without really thinking how people or consumers are going to interpret this 9 or 10 months down the line. But what we have realized that in the sense of the commitment which the local team had in terms of procuring the barley which we were supposed to procure, despite all challenges, despite the market yards and the mandis themselves not woken up, literally woken up, they were all closed down. That has actually led to a lot of good response where different corporates and industry associations now are also coming to us and asking us that how did you do this, how did you enable infrastructure locally, your EV example sort of reminded me of that. And with that thought in my mind, I'll sort of jump to Namrata here. And in the context of the pandemic itself, and in the context of what and how the pandemic has led to consumers also perceiving or viewing sustainability in a particular way. Um, and I ask this because this question comes up a lot. Do you think this is a trend, or do you think this is something which will last all our lives and something which will get embedded in the way businesses work? And if yes, what are those indicators that you're seeing based on your own interactions in the industry?
Thank you so much, Ashwin, for putting this together and for asking me something that I'm really passionate about and that I've been sort of looking at the past few years. So, to begin with, I just want to share a few numbers. Firstly, with more than 7 billion hours spent online, consumers were seeking words online pertaining to sustainability, ethical, fair trade, and eco-friendly clothing. So since we were, Mansi, me, and Dharashri are interested in the fashion space, so I thought I'd just share this number with you. These words were searched online and extensively in the last year, and the search trends increased over 150% over the previous year. So all it means is that people have looked at the fact that the pandemic has really impacted all of us all around in a very dramatic way. So consumers, when they were sitting at home, started thinking a little bit more about their value system and the fact that, while the pandemic has a vaccine, climate change has no vaccine. So, what is really going to happen if we were to continue business as usual, continue the way that we consume endlessly, and the fact that we prioritize convenience over everything else? And there is a little bit of change in consumers worldwide. Now, of course, different geographies are different, different kinds of consumers are different, but there's another interesting study. So, some people could say, what about search trends, right? Search trends only happen online when people actually purchase things. They may change their decision making and buy things that are not sustainable or not good for the planet and so on. But the fact of the matter is that awareness and intention appears much before that you actually take a decision to do something about it. So the fact that people are thinking about it, they are conversing with each other about it, there are these trends that are online, and there is a survey that I was talking about which says that 81% of respondents worldwide belong to two shopper segments: the value-driven consumer and the purpose-driven consumer. And unlike earlier, where the value driven consumer was higher, the value driven and the purpose driven consumer are now equal in percentages, which is 40% for the value driven consumer, and for the purpose driven consumer, just about 1% less, which is another 40%. 41% and 40%. So 81% of world consumers are now focusing on these two things. Also, 57% of consumers are willing to change their purchasing habits to help reduce environmental impacts. Now, whether they do so or they don't actually do so, but the fact that they want to be seen as saying these things to each other and to everybody else. And it is an active point of consideration, which was not the case earlier. Or it was a much smaller percentage of consumers that were actually looking at these things. So, what are the trends that we are seeing that are likely to continue? Number one, the fact that recycling has become very important. People are seeing the mountains of waste all around us. The pandemic has increased the awareness on health and hygiene. People are extremely concerned about the fact that excessive packaging leads to excessive waste, for instance, one of the things, or the fact that you need to actually start consuming more biodegradable products that have a lesser impact on the environment all around us. So recycling as a category and its impact on packaging and distribution is likely to continue. The fact that people are concerned about their environmental footprint. Today, just this morning, I read that General Motors has announced a full fleet of electric vehicles by 2035. That's huge. General Motors is the 18th in the Fortune 500 and has an enormous impact on the automotive supply chain. So, which means when iconic companies like that and yourselves also start talking about reducing carbon emissions, it impacts not just that company, but the entire supply chain. And that will have an enormous accelerative impact on the world. The other thing that is likely to be focused on is the fact that organizations need to want to be seen as doing good. And to me, marketing has a phenomenal role to play in transforming the world. So
That's so true.
we keep talking about the industrial revolution. In my view, we should be talking about the marketing revolution. Marketing actually sold us the things that we actually consume. So if marketing is talking about purpose, to me, that is what will actually drive the change in the entire ecosystem, because so many billions of consumers making the changes in an active daily way is what is likely to actually be seen from now till 2030, because 2030 is when the SDGs are supposed to actually make the impact. We've talked about the fact that SDGs, this is the decade of change. And in this decade of change, it is also going to be the transformation of marketing, in my view. Over to you, Ashwin.
Yeah, that's an important point. In fact, when you talked about circular packaging, the thing which stood out for me is that for the consumers out there, there is so much, right? Someone expects something in agriculture, someone has water on top of their mind, someone is probably looking at the larger impact of climate action, someone is looking at the plastic waste thrown around and thinking, how can we, how can we beat plastic pollution? So just on that thought, and probably for you, Dharashri, like what are those corporate sustainability topics that you seeing being important for the consumers, and does the expectation of the consumer differ basis the kind of product or services they are consuming? What do you really see happening?
Well, in my experience, going back to what Namrata was also talking about, the topics that most resonate at the company level would be the ones that demystify a company, right? So, what are you doing really? People want to know about the impact a company is making through innovation, and that could be across the supply chain from cradle to cradle. So when reducing the overall carbon impact, we talk about our work on renewable energy or electric vehicles, better waste management. There's a definite interest, right? Similarly, there's an interest around when the company is talking about creating a shared value towards communities. When we talk about, let's say, our artisans and weavers programs, which helps in training, artisans to come on sell online. We are talking about making e-commerce a much more inclusive space, while creating a lot of relevant growth opportunities. What the consumers really want to know about a lot of times is, does the company's value system reflect my own? Right? Do I resonate with what the company's value system is? Is the company inclusive? It all plays into making those consumer choices at the end of the day. And that is where a lot of the things that both Namrata and Mansi really bring to the table around marketing, making the conversation simple. How do we really reach that consumer that wants to make that choice and is still trying to figure out whether or not I can do it, whether I can make it a more sustainable choice for myself. All of those things really are questions that we deal with on a regular basis.
Yeah, in fact, on that, and probably for you, Namrata, also, there are different ways to look at sustainability. One of this is obviously the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Niti Aayog has also started coming up with the SDG index for each state. So when it comes to the consumers, how do they really connect between the UN SDGs and what they are expecting from their, their brands? What is that simplistic connection? And I'll probably move on with that question to you also, Mansi, after that.
So, um, what the last few years have seen in terms of sustainability is a lot of words that are being thrown around. Uh, and they're all relevant in different contexts. So the sustainable development goals are country level goals largely, which also have companies as signatories. Then you have ESG, which is a term that is largely being used by the financial community, which talks about the environment, social and governance aspects. And there are compliances that people are talking about and the kind of reports that they need to generate for that. But for consumers, we need to talk very differently. We need to talk about the fact that what is relevant to them. There are three things I always say. When you talk to a consumer, you've got to look at relevance, We've got to look at enduring impact, and you've got to make a distinction. So relevance in the sense that, yes, if your product will help reduce the impact of water, right? You will be consuming less water, say, in washing your clothes. If there's a washing machine that doesn't use any water, and that's the kind of technology that people are talking about now. So it's relevant to me. It's also good for the planet, and it will help reduce my water bill. And then there are many places all across the world where water scarcity is a very real thing, or in many parts of the world there is excess water. There's too much water. So climate change is one about water, and there's constantly, when we talk about excessive flooding and droughts and the impact, that's relevant to the consumer. So if you talk about product attributes that are sustainable and relevant to the consumer, it's very key. The second thing is it also has to be enduring. It's not as if that you can talk about a sustainability aspect that suddenly disappears because the environment has changed or the relevance has. So while we do talk about, viral marketing and flash in the pan kind of communication, in the case of sustainability, it has to have enduring impact. And the third piece is it has to be distinctive. So if all brands are talking about, suddenly all washing machines suddenly come out and they do not consume as much water or consume very marginal water, then what is distinctive about your brand? And why should the consumer then buy into you? And I was telling Dharashri that sometimes in sustainability we ask the wrong questions. We say that, because I'm sustainable, consumers should buy my product. That doesn't always happen because the consumer has a list of 100 things that they want. So when it comes to fashion, for instance, you want to look good, you want to figure out whether that color will suit you, whether that fabric is suitable for the environment. And of course, yes, if it's been made in the right way, and it will not harm the planet or the people who it was sourced from. So all those attributes are important. So in a nutshell, sustainability to the consumer, has to cover three things: relevance, be enduring, and be distinctive.
This conversation is moving quite seamlessly on that thought itself, Mansi. How do you think corporates can communicate and convey sustainability in a much better manner for the consumers so that they can also relate to it, understand it, and contextualize it for their daily lives also? What is that sweet spot, or is there no sweet spot?
Sorry, I wanted to comment on what Namrata was saying and even what Dharashri was saying. There were a lot of thoughts coming up in my head while they were speaking. Um, and I think it'll club the answer for both these questions together. I think so. What's important to know is that as consumers, there's already a lot on our plate. There's a lot of information that gets thrown our way every single day. We are overstimulated. So, for us to deep dive and do our research on sustainability is an added headache to a lot of people. I think to some that are really passionate about it will do their homework, will do whatever it takes to figure out what the brand is doing, send them emails, question them. That's partly what I do. But for the majority of the consumers, it becomes really hard to ask the right questions because they're already confused, so I think as a brand, I think today as a company or as a brand, there's a lot of responsibility on our shoulders to actually embed sustainability within our business strategy. Just do it. Like, make it such a strong part of your DNA that you don't have to make the effort to even talk about it, because everything you're doing is automatically sustainable. You just have to sell your product, and you just have to make sure that product looks so good and so exciting, and it adds value to a customer's life, that you're just getting more money and using that money to drive your business forward. That's what I think needs to happen. Instead of focusing your attention so much in trying to be sustainable and selling yourself as sustainable, just become sustainable on your own and let your product do the talking. It'll reduce the headache from the company's shoulders, it'll reduce the headache from the consumer's shoulders. What is driving the economy? Consumers' purchasing power. We are all spending. That's what's driving economies forward, corporates forward. a CEO's package forward. Like, it's just the money, right? So just do that. Just make sustainability a part of your business strategy. And sure, there will be trade-offs and payoffs along the way, but ultimately, what it really depends on what you value more, right? As a leader, like what is it that you want? What kind of impact do you want to leave on the world? And once you do that, I think that automatically shows in your communication throughout your organization and even outside of it. So there's no really stress about communicating sustainability because you're already doing it mindlessly. If that makes any
That's an
sense.
important point, and in fact, we've been getting a few questions on this specifically even before when we were actually thinking of the topic of the first webinar. So few things which keep on coming up is you have small startups also who are starting up with their own businesses, product based businesses in fashion, clothing, or footwear, or something like that, or where you have tangible products, who also wonder that yes, I am doing a lot to be more sustainable, and I want the consumer to sort of recognize it, and I want the consumer to be willing to pay more for it, because in some cases it is also taking me it is also costing me a bit more, because I want to source the right ingredients, I want to give the right pay, I want to be a responsible sourcing professional in that sense. So coming from that perspective, and this is open to any one of you, because this is a question which I keep on getting from a lot of these interactions with startups in particular, who are wondering how can they make that connect. And Mansi, Namrata, Dharashri, any one of you, whoever wants to take this.
Yeah. So okay, so it's been an interesting journey for me as someone who's been really been in the middle of the sustainable fashion conversation, and I'm seeing a lot of sustainable brands come up, or so-called sustainable brands come up. A lot of them just, so there's a difference between genuine brands who are doing things right, and then the brands that want to be a part of the trend, and sell something because it's trending and they'll make good money out of it, or they assume they'll make good money out of it. So the brands that have been doing it right for a long time, it's actually taken them almost 5 to 10 years to get to where they are, to reach a point where people actually trust them, and they are churning out some profits. So for newcomers to just think that they can use sustainable fabrics and then sell it as sustainable, it's not going to work out, because there are already a lot of sustainable brands out there. And I, as a conscious consumer, frankly, I'm a little tired of seeing so many sustainable brands. I don't want to buy from so many of them. And because the whole point of being sustainable is to not buy so much at the end, right? Like, that's also another thing.
True, true.
So I think the ones that are doing it right are getting attention. Like I said, if it's part of your DNA, it's part of your business, sure, it'll take time. But people will eventually recognize you and come to you and be gravitated towards you. And say in the case of Keep It Sustainable Stupid, we're just a year old, right? We're not selling anything. We're just like putting information out there. There are a lot of platforms that are doing the same thing. They're talking about sustainability. Everyone's talking about sustainability. So what's special about us? Um, but we have seen a lot of quality followers come to us. I mean, influencers, good businesses that are following us now. And even though we're like what, at 4,000 followers, these are the people that are actually understanding what we're doing and seeing the value they're getting out of what we're talking about, because we've gone above and beyond when it comes to talking about sustainability. We're giving it everything. We're like deep diving, doing all the best kind of research to give value to the consumer. So as a sustainable brand, if you're starting a brand for yourself to make money, it's not going to work. If you're starting a brand to actually add value to someone's life, for sure, there's no reason why it shouldn't.
And you made a very important point there, and I'll jump in before I sort of follow up with another follow up question to this, where you were talking about the topical moments and brands trying to leverage what is happening at that point of time. And I'll probably give an example from our own organization of the brand Budweiser, which has now for long been actually supporting a lot of these causes around socially responsible behavior, around the environment in general, And what I noticed right now over the last 1 year, that we've had many occasions where our North America team and even a few of other business units actually diverted a lot of their marketing dollars into spend which was very specific to, making PPE kits available, making the proper health kits available. Even right now, this is probably the first time in 37 years Budweiser is not coming out with an ad in Super Bowl, because that brand at a global level is diverting all of that fund into the vaccine rollout campaign. So what I noticed, that has been receiving very good feedback now, because the brand has been doing it for decades and decades, so it has built up on that. So people, when they look at it, or consumers when they look at it, they don't go like, oh, they are not just doing a PR stunt, they have a history to back it up. So when you said that, that is something which really stood out for me.
Because Ashwin, at one level, brand purpose is about doing the right thing, no matter what, right? So if you're doing the right thing, people will value you for it.
True.
And then looking at a product in that context, should a customer pay a premium because you're doing the right thing, is a tough question, and that you need to really think through.
Yeah.
I'll also add something here very quickly. There is a serious trust deficit between consumers, brands, and even brands and their suppliers right now. I mean, we're already seeing a lot of supply chain issues. I talk to a lot of Indian suppliers that export their products, and it's interesting that most Indian suppliers I've spoken to actually don't want to work with Indian brands. They're like, because they don't pay on time. There's so many issues in their communication issues and the way they work, and there are a lot of trust issues between a consumer and the brand also, because consumer doesn't know who to trust. And so it's not just about transparency. Transparency alone won't work. There needs to be honesty also from a brand side. So people are not expecting perfection in any way. People know sustainability is hard to do. It's not, and consumers empathize a lot. So they really expect brands to be honest and upfront about where they are at in their sustainability journey. You don't have to say, oh, I'm doing everything correct and I have to be like carbon neutral in like 5 years. No, we don't care. Just tell us you're taking small steps. Let us be a part of your journey. Let us contribute. Let us help you, and let us be a part of your journey, instead of throwing all this information at us and expecting us to buy more and spend a premium on these products. Tell us why we should do it, and we'll do it. You know.
I think one of the things that from what Mansi and Namrata was saying resonated, and this is something that I tell a lot of team members that have come our way. Sustainability is about trust, is about transparency, but is a lot of times about persistence. You have to really make sure that you're consistent and you're persistent about what you're talking about, that you're not doing just flash in the pan things. You're being very, very deliberate about what is it that you're trying to drive, because none of these more systemic things will just happen if you just wave a magic wand and you'll be like, oh, no ocean plastic suddenly. That doesn't happen, right? So in order to make that change, in order to make that transformation, it has to be a very consistent sort of strategy, and you have to make sure that you're working across every type of ecosystem. There will be constantly questions about why and what and how, and you have to deal with it at a consistent basis. You have to communicate that back as well, that we realize that things um, are are not exactly how we want them to be, and it's not a utopian world right now, but we are making the change to make that happen. We are moving towards it, and this is what we're doing. This is how we are taking the steps to make that happen. And like I said, it you would have to work across educational institutions. You would have to work across public interest groups. You have to work with the with your consumers, with the public, wherever possible, to deliver the best outcomes. It can't just be you do one initiative and it'll all work out. It'll also have to be, you to work through procurement, through manufacturing, through supply chain. At the point of consumption, you have to tell your consumers to bring back certain things as well, to enable that more circular sort of way of thinking. There's a lot that needs to be done, but as long as you are persistent about it, as long as you're consistent about it, your consumers, your stakeholders do take notice, and that's what matters.
I think that's a very important message for not just startups but all corporates, that it's not important to be trying to do everything and then failing at half of it. You already have a business, you already have an operation and a value chain. Why not do that in the best manner possible? Then your work will also speak for itself in many ways. As Mansi also highlighted, yeah, that's an important point. On that point itself, and something on which I think Namrata can actually add on a lot, like you have corporates on one side doing all of this, then you have the consumers who are the sustainability conscious consumers. They are getting that communication from the corporate, but for them, what is the way to validate these claims? What is the way for them to know that this is authentic? So as a part of a manifesto for the consumer, what are those touch points for them that they can reach out to and understand, okay, these are the ranking or metrics or frameworks which explain this in the best manner?
There are, see, let's look at it from the company point of view. The company is creating a product, the company is telling a story, and then they're expecting consumers to actually absorb that and take action. Now, that story also always consists of many things. So, say for instance, in a food brand, it's about the fact that it'll be it's good for you, it will be healthy, it will be nutritious, it will not harm you, and there are many other attributes as well that it'll make you say look cool or be with it with your friends and so on. So there are many attributes that an organization is selling to the customer. Now, customers actually may take that at face value. Alternatively, they may start questioning the brand and the fact, and it happens very often in terms of food products, because they actually impact your body at a very personal level, right? So trust and traceability in that communication becomes extremely relevant. Now there are new technologies that are emerging that are based, for instance, sometimes the technology is based on a DNA being infused into a particular product, you being able to take your phone and then look at the RFID tag on that product to figure out the nutritional label. There are times that you can actually go to a website and see that what is it that the organization is talking about, is there authenticity within that. But at one level, it is also the fact that there is, this just highlights the fact that there is consistency of data that organizations are actually putting out into the market needs to be there. So a sustainability report that an organization needs to put out can't be just about photographs, right? It has to be about data. It has to be about saying that, yes, these are our targets, this is how we are achieving them, and therefore I am communicating to the customer about this specific product in this manner. Now, customers have also started asking questions. So, questioning the company, questioning the brand, and also looking at the authenticity of the information being shared is absolutely critical. Now, there are several apps that have come out. There are several groups that have emerged. There are many startups that are also emerging in this space. And to my mind, it is a very large open space for technology intervention, consumer transparency, as well as consumer groups getting together to live their values through the brands that they actually believe in. So no specific answer per se, Ashwin, in terms of the specific tools that you can adopt, because there are many out there, and I don't want to specifically endorse one. But I think this is a journey that customers have already started on and they're beginning to take.
Yeah, and I think you had an important point there where you were talking about the G aspect of ESG, where you look at governance, data, reporting. A lot of the evidence and a lot of the validation can actually be done by a very good sustainability report itself. So I think that was a very important point that you highlighted. Just to close it out, because I know we're about to get to the end of this discussion, I would have loved to continue this discussion probably for the next 3-4 hours, but we have time constraints. So, Dharashri and Mansi, from your side, the original idea of the sustainability manifesto that we have, which we want to come out with later on towards the end of this year, based on all of your inputs, what is that key takeaway that you want to leave everyone with in terms of what is that point in the manifesto for the consumer to remember?
I think so. In terms of a manifesto, what I would say is it's important to see sustainability from not just a consumer perspective, but also from a business perspective. I think as sustainability professionals, we become trained to focus on the impact narrative. However, in doing that, if we keep sight of sort of the long-term value that is generated for communities, for your supply chain, for businesses, and that becomes an important factor to influence businesses to do the right thing, right? So it's important to change that narrative and bring in the value creation from a socio-economic perspective. But there are so many exciting areas of opportunity, right, in today's age of sustainability as a discipline, which it's come such a long way. From a supply chain perspective, you're talking about increasing efficiency of resource utilization, you're talking about implementing circular business models, going further back and looking at regenerative methods. For consumers, there's so much education and so much awareness around how to be more sustainable in simple terms, making sure that the products we put out into the market are the most sustainable versions of themselves. From a macroeconomic perspective, people are talking about cost to carbon, green bonds, sustainable financing mechanisms, driving for transparency throughout supply chains. From a people perspective, they're talking about like inclusion of people in communities to make us successful. So there is a whole host of different opportunities that as businesses and as consumers we are exposed to. It's just a matter of what becomes relevant to us. How do we make sure that we message consistently and bring about that change on a rolling basis. So that's what I would say as a going away sort of thing.
Thanks. Mansi, your parting comments?
I'll try to keep this as simple as I can. So I think sustainability is everyone's responsibility. It's not just we're not working in silos here. This planet belongs to all of us. So the responsibility of the governments, the brands, and the consumers. And So if I have to give, share my message for each of them separately. For the governments, please come up with the right policies. Please support companies in pushing the agenda forward. Make it happen quick, because there's no time bickering amongst ourselves. We just, this just needs to be done ASAP. For companies, try to be as honest as you possibly can about your journey. Consumers are not stupid. We're living in an honest generation. Old school ways of advertising won't work on us anymore. We actually see through a lot of BS that we get sold to us, so we know what's true and what's not. So using jargons like eco-friendly, organic, and sustainable won't cut it. And for consumers, please do your homework, please do your research, please ask a lot of questions, and do support brands that are doing it the right way, because that's how brands get empowered to do better. So we are each of us is basically empowering the other to do better and holding each other accountable. And social proofing works best. I feel like it's always worked best. And when it comes to sustainability, we need to actually tap into that herd mentality and social proofing in this case, and really make the best of it. So yeah, just keep it simple, stupid, and keep it sustainable, stupid.
That's a quite apt tag in there. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mansi. Thank you, Dharashri, and thank you, Namrata. I guess we couldn't have had a better start to this, and to everyone who's viewing it right now and who will go to the Sustainability 100 Plus website and view it. Be rest assured, we're going to have many more such conversations coming up from different speakers, from different experts, and often a lot of arguments and hopefully a lot of disagreements, which will sort of help us create a much better manifesto by the end of this. So thanks. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ashwin.
Thank you, everyone. It was great to be
Everyone,
here.
all the best, Ashwin.
Have a fabulous day. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, is that all? Are there any questions from anyone?
I got a few directly to me, which I asked in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, but thank you so much for organizing this Abindev and Network 18 and everyone involved. I think this is a great, good first step towards what we need to achieve. And it's not going to be easy for sure. So we need many different viewpoints, but we have to come up with something that's cohesive and that works in the best interest of India. I think there's a lot of conversation around sustainability and a lot of things being done in the West, obviously, but India is more susceptible to climate change, and we're already seeing that and feeling that. So I think it's really important that we push this agenda forward quickly.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for this excellent start.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Okay, bye.